Well, hello, my fellow MBTI enthusiasts. Let's talk about heartaches, because why not choose another happy topic today? And let's talk about how do the 16 personality types deal with breakups and heartaches. We have all gone through these painful times, but the ways we deal with this pain can be really different. In this video, we will be diving into the 16 types and their breakup strategies based on their cognitive functions. If you don't know what cognitive functions are, please look at this video and go through cognitive functions before watching this video. Okay, ISTPs. Let's start with you. So your first function is introverted thinking and your last is extroverted feeling in your, basic ego stack. Okay, so that means that an ISTP will first analyze what went wrong. Then the extroverted sensing comes and is like, okay, it makes sense, these are the reasons it didn't work, and that's why, it's a good reason to let go. Let's also distract ourselves with hobbies or physical interest and kind of ignore that I actually have emotions or that, I actually feel something of this situation. Let's just let the emotions bottle up. Okay, so what happens is that the ISTP might have sudden burst of this emotional overwhelm, oh shit, I actually feel bad. I'm really sad about the situation. I have to let go of this person. And maybe even start regretting, the things that happened in the past. Maybe they start even over-rationalizing. Oh, I didn't like them that much anyway. Next one, INTP. Also sharing the introverted thinking first function, but also now they have the extroverted intuitions. Let's think about the what if scenarios. Let's keep our minds busy with over-analyzing abstractly. Their extroverted feeling function is also feeling bad, emotional overwhelm, but not being able to deal with that. So what they do is detach. Let's just not have emotion or deal with that. I do crave the social relationship or crave the feeling of connection with another person. And also that I would want perhaps closure for these things. But as we know, INTPs like to keep options open and also not being really in touch with their emotions. So what ends up happening is that there's many things that the INTP never maybe said out loud to the other person. They might feel the burden of holding a lot of stuff inside of them. Maybe even analyzing really deeply of all the things that went wrong and start living in the past and start just feeling bad and regret the past mistakes. So compared to the ISTP, the INTP is much more less action oriented and more likely to stay in their head. And also both of them are not that in touch with their feelings. Next one, EXTJs. Ooh, let's start with the ESTJ. So ESTJs, you and your extroverted thinking hero dominant function and the introverted feeling inferior function. ESTJs will take a practical approach to this. They're still rebuilding their consistent practices. They're gonna make their schedule to make sense, daily management practices that make sense in the long run. Because they want a sense of moving forward, so that ESTJ will just do daily practices that will just make them feel like they're going somewhere. Even if the hit or the past thing that happened might still hold trauma to them, they don't wanna deal with that. It's like this monster that's living under your bed, but you don't really wanna look under the bed, you know what I mean? And this is really funny because I think the ENTJ has a similar approach to breakup situations like the ESTJ. They're both control-oriented types. The ENTJ wants to control the big picture and the plan they're going forward in the future. They're both also action-oriented. ENTJs can, have fun with friends. They can also live in the moment and that can be their way of moving on with the struggles. But the ENTJs also need to feel like they're moving forward. They need to feel like their future makes sense to them, that the future is meaningful to them. Otherwise, the ENTJ will just feel lost. And they also don't want to look under the bed, the monster. They don't want to face the monster. Their future has to make sense to them, so they have the energy and interest to move forward. And the ESTJ, on the other hand, will more likely control the daily practices, the environment, the practicalities of life. But after a while, both of these types have to face their emotions, have to face the trauma that has been left, the wounds that are in their hearts. Sooner or later, they will face them. That is the true spot for growth for EXTJs. Okay, let's talk about the introverted feeling heroes. Yeah, I know. So ISFPs, we have the introverted feeling, dominant function, and extroverted thinking as the last function. For ISFP, the pain can feel so overwhelming. They don't like to face it. So ISFPs would like to indulge in creativity, physical things, hedonistic things to get over how they feel. And since ISFPs have the fear of not being efficient or not moving forward with their lives, they can easily just focus on the moment, which gives them kind of comfort. They can focus on the short-term goals, which is like, I can eat whatever I want right now. I don't need to be consistent because I feel like this. They can easily start giving excuses based on how they feel and what they want in the short term. So that is the ISFP's coping mechanism, and maybe even creative art and work where they can truly perhaps show the world what they are feeling, you know? The true art of the ISFPs is that they can create beautiful things out of their own feelings. Then we have INFPs. Similar ways like INFPs need to kind of deal with their emotions, and it can feel really overwhelming to them. It's not the same as for a high extrovert thinking user where you can literally just kind of ignore that your feelings exist. Like if the EXTJ thinks that the introverted feeling is like a monster under the bed, the INFP and the ISFP kind of have to face the monster all the time, and they have to live with the monster all the time next to them. Okay, this is a horrible analogy because introverted feeling is not a monster. It's actually a great thing in its most positive form. But when we're talking about pain, it can be difficult, you know? So as an INFP, you kind of have to face, you know, the breakup, and you have to face the pain that it might provide you. But this is also the space for growth. This provides and gives the space for growth. So the INFP is not as action oriented as the ISFP, as the ISFP might like actually perform their feelings. The INFP might do things like journaling, reflection, thinking deeply, poetry. More of like these abstract hobbies are the ways that the INFP might deal with their emotions. Extroverted intuition might like cling into the what if scenarios. Like what if it would have gone differently? Like what if I would have chosen a different road? And especially INFPs who are really hurt might do that for a really long time before being able to move on. As introvert sensing users, they also like to be nostalgic, you know, like, those past good memories. I just want to think about the good memories of the past and kind of like live in the past versions of life. But I have to say, this is also the amazing thing about high introverted feeling users, because they can literally use this pain and use this kind of experience to really do something amazing, because that's their way of motivation. That's their way of kind of maturing. It is to kind of be aligned with yourself and the pain and feelings that you have. And it's part of human life, you know? There's nothing good or bad in it. ESFJ and ENFJ. So now we're having the extroverted feeling, dominant functions, and introverted thinking, inferior functions. Okay, let's start with ESFJ. I mean, let's be honest, both ENFJs and ESFJs need people, and they require people to grow and also to deal with difficult situations like breakup. The ESFJ leans to the close circle that they have, and maybe even like people they just get along really well with, and they need kind of a sense of community and support. They need kind of a foundation that they feel secure enough that, okay, I have all these amazing people around me, I have amazing structures, I have a community around me that makes me feel like I can grow, that make me feel like I can maybe get over this breakup or this difficult situation. But I mean, let's be honest, it's not like the ESFJ knows always how to put boundaries to themselves, so they can, during difficult times, put other people before them. And ESFJs have also the tendency to follow so much of the social norms and the social needs that they might forget to actually process this thing that's happening, the breakup, the feelings they truly have, and the trauma that perhaps this person has left in them, so that they can actually grow and become better people for the next. But let's be honest, this is even more common to ENFJs than ESFJs, because ESFJs still have the introverted sensing and extroverted intuition. So they think about what if scenarios and they have a foundation under them. The ENFJ is more like they have a future vision of themselves that can be broken in a breakup. You know, like I imagined my whole future, my next 10 years with this person, and now it's broken. Also, ENFJs have the tendency to live in the moment and maybe be more hedonistic. They like to have fun. They love adventures and new things and stimulating environments, compared to the ESFJ, which ESFJs have more like a practical day-to-day management works. But for ENFJs, they have to reconstruct themselves really fast. But luckily, ENFJs are really good at that. ENFJs are pretty adaptable. But what issues will come is that the ENFJ will feel lonely. They don't like lonely. Lonely is bad for ENFJ, and they also have to reconstruct their future, their vision for themselves. So what can end up happening is that the ENFJ starts living in the moment, or just becomes a doormat, because they don't want to face that they are not aligned with themselves. They're not dealt with their issues, their own individual needs, desires, wants, and like perhaps they're putting too much effort on other people and performing, giving other people good experiences, giving other people what they need and how they feel, but not what have I gone through in my life that has made me the way I am today. So the ultimate challenge for ENFJ is to face that they also have needs and they are individuals and they don't exist for others in some sense. Okay, next one, introverted intuition dominance, INFJ and INTJ. Well, I mean, let's be honest, INFJs and INTJs, like these two types are extremely rare already, and for a reason, because these types will both think, what is the great purpose of my pain? And, you know, go through a really strong, deep reflection process of the breakup. So, which is basically like, what is the meaning of relationships? Is there a meaning to have relationship? Why would I follow the social norms in this society? The INFJ, which has the extroverted feeling, they go through the deep questioning and reflection process, but they go more through the emotional approach, which is like they might meditate, they want to be in tune with their emotions, they might be writing, they might want to have deep dialogues with people, or you know, other quiet activities, and they might actually focus on feeling the pain and growing and understanding themselves and the pain. This is why maybe the INFJ might withdraw from people, distract, they might feel lonely. Compared to the INTJs are not that aligned with their emotions, but you know, they still have them strongly affecting them. They just don't know how to deal with that. So the INTJ will obviously overanalyze and over-rationalize and be like, no, this is because of this, I do not have emotions, this is how it makes sense to have a breakup. Surprisingly, INTJs might make decisions that are really emotional, over-rationalize it afterwards. I mean, INTJs will seem extremely calm from the outside, but no one knows what's going inside. You know, there's like a huge tornado of emotions going inside. No one can even see that, you know. They can seem cold, detached. But the INTJ, although they have strong emotions, they go through a self-reflection and they have the vision a future, and they have to plan actions for the future to make sense of their life again. It's like, what do I want actually from my future? What is the ideal life for me, and what are the actions I'm gonna take for it? Like, let's make sense of my life. Okay, let's have introverted sensing users next. So we have ISFJ and ISTJ. ISFJ is a community-oriented, harmony-oriented person who likes to also reflect and think about what all kinds of meanings do my relationships have, what kind of possibilities there are in the future. And the ISFJ during a breakup will rely on the close people they have around them. They might reflect on the memories, and actually the hardest part for an ISFJ is to let go of those memories and start living in the moment, start actually doing things that are good right now for you, and don't start becoming nostalgic and oh, things were so good when I was with this person long time ago. You know, let's like move on. But even though ISFJs can feel really strongly, they don't like to show it outside, so that you will not know if an ISFJ is going through a breakup, you know what I mean? They won't show it to you. It actually can be pretty hidden. And ISTJs have a similar way of doing things, but the ISTJs cannot hold those feelings too long, because the ISTJs do feel them strongly and it does affect their lives. It's not the same as for an ISFJ, and the ISTJ will have to face their emotions pretty soon. They can't hold them too long. In one way or another, they have to face them. And the ISTJ has the same difficulty, that they will start being nostalgic and thinking about the past and all the good things that happened in the past. But the ISTJ, as with the INTJ, will rationalize their emotions, will rationalize why it is good that, you know, things have moved on. But they also might have the negative scenarios. What if I would have just stayed with that person? Perhaps things would be better. And, you know, just like overthinking, over speculating for the situation. What helps ISTJ is that, you know, just like focusing on daily practices, making life to make sense again. And ISTJs just have to do something important to them every day. And the ISTJ should stick to the routine until they're ready to move on, until they're ready to face their emotions. That's the way for the ISTJ. Okay, extroverted intuition, dominant users, ENFP and ENTP. Oh my god. Okay, let's start with the ENTPs. Okay, they are both chaotic people. Some of them more organized than others, I admit. And both of them will go through a breakup with exploration. Exploration of the possibilities in the future, the scenarios, the options, providing and creating options for themselves, and not facing, you know, the trauma, or, you know, let's just introverted sensing inferior there is like, hey, I do exist here. Please notice me. Please take into account that you have just experienced something really difficult. And the extroverted intuition is like, nah, I don't think so. You know, like tomorrow looks great and the week after looks great. I don't need to think about all the small things of the past. So the ENTP, maybe they go for social meetings, they go to debate with someone, maybe they get even emotional in a debate, but they don't notice it. They get triggered by something. Oh shit, that guy mentioned that thing that my ex mentioned 1 year ago. I don't like this dude. Why did this person remind me of that dude? Maybe it's perhaps you have not actually processed the things in the past. The ENTPs are more rational than the ENFPs. So the ENTP will have some reflections of the past once in a while, but they will rationalize them. They will be like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense that I feel that way about that person. That guy actually looks like my ex, so that's why they are annoying. But ENTPs, you are influenced by your emotions and values and all that stuff as well. And nothing in your past is kind of just purely logical. So the ENTP kind of has to balance between this kind of explorative, let's just have fun and have a lot of options kind of style. Let's like have a moment of myself. Let's have a moment for introspection to see what's going on under the hood. So it's a bit similar to the ENFP, but the ENFP will have to face their emotions. I mean, they are facing their emotions all the time because their identity kind of creates who they are, and it's important for the ENFP to know that. So the ENFP will also choose the possibilities. Let's have adventures, let's have the social, let's just be with friends, let's be successful, let's make money. Whatever it is, instead of rationalizing to themselves like, okay, this makes sense, this is logical, the ENFPs say to themselves, I do this for myself, to heal myself, to become a better person myself. So what happens to the ENFPs, the first thing is that they don't want to face the past, they don't want to face the emotions that it has, they don't want to face maybe even the truth. Maybe the reality can sometimes be really harsh for them. They like to idealize the lives they have. But once they are more in tune with their introverted feeling and introverted sensing, they might start the path to self-growth. And that's an important thing for an ENFP. Okay, last ones. Let's have the extroverted sensing users. ESTP and ESFP. I'm not gonna talk long for this because ESXPs are the best when it comes to handling breakups. I don't mean in the sense that necessarily better than the others. Okay, let's say they're the fastest to move on. And I say fastest, but I don't mean it because I think a lot of like ESFPs, for example, kind of have trauma of the things that have happened, but not deal with it, you know? So actually it can be prolonged. But the ESXPs might think like breakup is like gives them more freedom. It's like, oh, finally I can be free. I can do whatever I want and I love life. As long as the ESXP feels like they're doing something to get somewhere, maybe at some point, they feel like their life has meaning and it's worth of living. Making life worth living for themselves is important. So when they go through a breakup, the ESFP has more like the emotional burden than the ESTP. And that's why the ESFP perhaps needs more like people and they want to share with people their emotions and etc, etc. But you know, when it comes to the ESFP and ESTP, it is still important to go through properly the introspective process that you need still to become a better human being. I mean, in the end, it doesn't matter what's your personality type. Also, it is gonna be your attachment style, you know, your background, the relationship you have with your parents, your culture, all this kind of stuff is going to affect your situation, your financial situation, and how long you have had a relationship with that person, and etc, etc. All these things will affect, obviously, how you deal with the breakup. But we can see definitely patterns when it comes to personality types. So in this video, I just wanted to share some of them. Please like and subscribe for more videos like this. It is so valuable that so many of you are already supporting me. See you in the next video.